Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Fins Nation. I am your host, Louis Song, and today I am joined by a new guest, Mr. Marek Brave, who was filling in for the 3 yards per carry crew back when they were during their vacation. So now he's going to be joining me on my show as a contributor to the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Mr. Marek, how are you, sir?
Hey, Louis, thanks for having me on. Excited to be here. Excited to talk some Miami Dolphins football. Excited that this weekend there will actually be real live Miami Dolphins football, not preseason action, not training camp, not OTAs, but real life week 1 Miami Dolphins football against the Los Angeles Chargers. Should be a fun time.
And I'll give you kudos because you actually called them the Los Angeles Chargers, not the San Diego Chargers, because I still get hung up on that a few times. It's so easy to call them that. But anyway, so we've got a lot of stuff to talk about here because the Miami Dolphins, obviously, they're getting ready for the Los Angeles Chargers. They're going to try to fix the mess that happened after last season. McDaniel was absolutely trashed as far as his coaching was concerned, but he did make some interesting jokes today during his press conference about how he now has the former Chargers defensive coordinator Ronaldo Hill on his staff, so maybe he knows all the secrets now, so maybe we'll be able to actually beat the Chargers this time. We'll get into all sorts of other stuff here, the injury reports that happened, some players making it to the practice squad that we did not think were going to make it at first because some new news has broken on that front. But before we get into all that, just want to go ahead and mention that, as always, this show is brought to you by our good friends over at You Brake Wheel Fix. You Brake Wheel Fix is the complete automotive wheel solution. Ever parked too close to the sidewalk curb? You Brake Wheel Fix specializes in the repair of damaged wheels from bends, cracks, and curb rash. Or maybe your wheels are faded or peeling. You don't need to replace them, as You Brake Wheel Fix can refinish them to like new. Offering complete refinish options through powder coating, machining, and polishing, You Brake Wheel Fix is the answer to all of your wheel needs. And if you're just looking to give your ride a new look, You Brake Wheel Fix also offers many car customizing options, such as new custom wheels and tires from your favorite brands, performance upgrades, window tinting, and suspension modifications. Located just south of Aventura, you can reach Mark and his staff at 305-748-0112 or online at youbrakewheelfix.com. They are really active on all social media platforms at You Brake Wheel Fix, so shoot them a DM on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter and get an estimate in just minutes. So don't delay, go to You Brake Wheel Fix and start customizing your ride to show off your Dolphins fandom today. This show is also brought to you by PrizePicks.com. PrizePicks.com is a revolutionary fantasy platform where you can now pick up to 6 different players across professional sports leagues. Whether that's the NFL, the NBA, the MLB, one of each, it's up to you to decide. Just choose whether your chosen player will get more or less than their projected stat. They give you free squares, special Taco Tuesday promos, which are available today as you are listening to this. Today is Taco Tuesday as you're listening to this. There are also Flex Friday specials where you can get your money back if you lose or multiply the amount of money you can normally win. So with offers like that, it's hard to justify not signing up if you are any kind of a fantasy sports fan. So use the promo code 5, that's FIVE, and they will match up to $100 on your initial deposit when you sign up. Get the promo code 5, FIVE, go to prizepicks.com, deposit your $100, take advantage of that free Dak Prescott square that's currently available, and let PrizePicks get you started winning today. All right, Mr. Marek, so we're going to go ahead and just talk some Dolphins football here. The first thing I want to go ahead and briefly mention here, I want to just get this out of the way. I did a show recently with Alfredo Arteaga of the 3 yards per carry, and he was basically giving his opinion as to why certain players did not make the practice squad. One of which was actually wide receiver Robbie Chosen. Now, the reasoning that Alf gave was that all these other wide receivers had managed to perform better in training camp and performed better in preseason, obviously. Like Robbie Chosen, yeah, he was doing some stuff. He had a strong start, but he kind of faded away as time went on, and he just couldn't keep up with the likes of Eric Ezukanma, who had already been in this offense, River Craycraft, obviously, who has already been in this offense. They all beat him out, and so it seemed that Robbie Chosen was going to be the guy on the outside looking in. Well, now, as it turns out, the Miami Dolphins have, in fact, brought him back to the practice squad. I guess he signed on with them, so I want to get your thoughts on that. Why do you feel like it took so long for him to sign on, or do you even make anything of it at all?
Well, Robbie Chosen, he's kind of a different cat. He's got a unique personality, and there were some rumblings that maybe he wasn't gelling with the coaching staff as well as the staff would have hoped, and that's all fine and good. But the fact of the matter remains that Robbie Chosen has been a number one wide receiver in the NFL in the past. In past teams that he's been on. River Craycraft can't say the same. Braxton Berrios can't say the same. Eric Ezukanma can't say the same. And if you can put, three receivers on the field, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Robbie Chosen, that's three number ones on the field. All three do their damage through speed. So as a defense, you don't know who's going deep, who might run a shallow route, who's trying to hit that middle of the field that Tua, was eating up all last season. I enjoy the fact, I like the fact that they brought Robbie Chosen back. I think he can bring a lot to this offense. He can be the guy that goes deep, which allows Tyreek to catch an intermediate pass and then maybe get some of that yards after catch that the Dolphins offense was looking for last season. So I'm happy he's back. We'll see how many times he gets elevated. They can elevate him 3 times before they either have to let him go or they have to sign him to the active 53. So we'll see what happens, but I am happy that Robbie Chosen is back with the Miami Dolphins, even if it is just the practice squad for now.
I'm not exactly against the whole idea of Robbie Chosen. In fact, I'm actually rather happy he's back with the team in some capacity. The only thing that I would say is that, yes, Robbie Chosen has that history, but it's very telling that he was not given a whole lot of consideration. He didn't have a whole lot of interest. You said it yourself that he has an interesting personality. Well, I get that there are a lot of interesting personalities on the Dolphins already. I know that Tyreek Hill is he's very open about what he has to say, what he thinks. He obviously, Jalen Ramsey, even though he's hurt, he's still involved in many ways. He's very vocal on places like Twitter and stuff like that. So there are definitely no lack of intense personalities on the Dolphins. So for Robbie Chosen, I feel like the only thing that kept him from actually making the roster at this point was simply just that he wasn't able to grasp the offense as quickly, or maybe he wasn't giving as much effort as some of the other guys. Like you're right about one thing. River Craycraft obviously can never say that he was a number 1 wide receiver in the NFL. Robbie Chosen obviously has been back in his Jets days, but that's a long time removed from that point. And the fact that they chose River Craycraft over Robbie Chosen, there's obviously something that Craycraft does that Chosen was not. And so we have to acknowledge that and say, okay, what exactly was Robbie Chosen doing, or rather not doing, that River Craycraft was, and that's why they chose him. I would have to say, number 1, special teams work, because River Craycraft is obviously fantastic with special teams.
Agree.
And River Craycraft, even it's very interesting. This is something that I'm going to go ahead and pull up really quickly here, because one other thing that River Craycraft actively gets noticed for, and this is something that was spoken about Tyreek. And this is when you hear Tyreek Hill coming out of your way to say that sort of stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring this up. Let me just read this for you real quick here. So just as a reminder for everybody, the Miami Dolphins wide receivers, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, basically chose teams in the wide receiver room during training camp and preseason, and they were trying to figure out who had the better team out of the bunch of them. And
like a fantasy draft, if you will.
In a matter of speaking, yes, they competed with each other to figure out whose team was going to be the best in training camp and preseason, which is fine. I don't mind that. It's good, healthy competition. But this is what Tyreek Hill had to say specifically about River Craycraft, and this is why I want to highlight it as to why I feel like Craycraft got the nod over Chosen for the 53. And I quote, "He was my first draft pick because River, he's the kind of guy. So we set rules. The rules were impact plays, impact blocks, knowing the assignment each and every play. And River, the reason why he's on the team is because he's a smart guy who knows where to line up at every position, and he's going to make every impact block. That's a key point for just drafting for myself, because I drafted a pretty good team. I drafted guys who are smart, guys who can make plays, and guys who are still kind of learning the offense that kind of need a wing. I'm like their helping hand, the leader for them. I think I won, dog. I don't care what nobody says. I don't care." Okay, but he's making a joke at that last part there, basically saying Jalen Waddle, according to the coaches, beat out Tyreek Hill's team. But what needs to be highlighted, in my opinion, is look what he said about River Craycraft. He's literally went out there and said, I chose River Craycraft before anybody else in that wide receiver room. So he chose him over Braxton Berrios. He chose him over Cedric Wilson. He chose him over playmaker Eric Ezukanma. He chose River Craycraft before any one of those guys because he knows everything he's supposed to be doing, when he's supposed to do it, and he makes those blocks. I feel like that's the thing that separated Robbie Chosen from River Craycraft in the Dolphins' mind.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. I think, Robbie Chosen, given his wide receiver 1 status with other teams he's been on, not asked to play special teams at those stops. That's something I don't know if the coaching staff wanted him to do here in Miami, and maybe he wasn't receptive. I'm not sure. But yeah, I think you're right. That's a big reason why Craycraft got the nod on the 53 over Chosen. And then, like you said, the blocking ability. Robbie Chosen is a slender man, very, very skinny frame on that guy, which allows him to run extremely fast, but not very conducive to being a good blocker in the running game or the screen game or anything like that. So I completely understand why the coaching staff chose Craycraft over Robbie Chosen for maybe that last receiver spot. But I do think Robbie Chosen does bring value to the team. And I think, him being on the practice squad is a good thing for the Miami Dolphins. God forbid, this midsection injury flares up for Jalen Waddle after the regular season kicks off, or something happens to Tyreek Hill. I'm knocking on wood as I speak that right now. But he is someone who can, at the very least, replicate the speed that both of those receivers bring to the Miami Dolphins offense. So you hope they wouldn't have to change too much in regards to how they hope to run this offense.
Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and congratulate Robbie Chosen for making it back to the Dolphins. We hope that everything... Exactly, there we go. Speaking of Jalen Waddle, though, since you brought that up, you had mentioned just off camera the list of players who practiced and who did not practice. So that kind of gives us an idea of where we're at as the Dolphins get ready to play the Chargers this upcoming Sunday. So can you just quickly go through that list one more time so that everybody here can kind of understand where we're at this moment?
Yep, Jalen Waddle dealing with that midsection injury. A little mystery surrounding that this offseason. They didn't really give us too many details as to what was going on. Every time McDaniel was asked, he just said he wanted to protect Waddle from himself. It wasn't too serious, but he wanted to protect him from himself, and that seems to be true because he came back to practice today, Monday, before week 1. So Waddle's back. Brandon Jones, safety, coming back from that torn ACL last season. He's back practicing today. And Devon Achane, rookie running back, dealing with the shoulder injury suffered in the preseason. He was back practicing. Unfortunately, Miami's big ticket acquisition at the left tackle spot last offseason, Taron Armstead, always dealing with something, did not practice today. Now, we don't want to get our listeners too worried. Taron Armstead, he's an OG. He's 32 years old. He doesn't like to practice, and he doesn't necessarily need practice. He barely practiced at all last season. He still missed 4 regular season games and was in and out of Miami's playoff game against Buffalo. So there is a little bit of concern there, but it's Monday. When you're listening to this, you might even get an update that he practiced on Tuesday. Who knows? We'll find out soon enough. But if he's not practicing by the later practices this week, then I think there might be an indication that he won't be playing this Sunday against the Chargers, and they might be looking to rest him up. And you do wonder, how that affects the rest of this offense. By all accounts, Kendall Lamb has been playing well in Taron Armstead's absence at the left tackle spot this offseason. So we'll see if Lamb can continue to do that if he's pressed into duty against the Chargers week 1. But I know, me personally, I got my fingers crossed. I got my toes crossed. I'm doing anything and everything I can, making potions, Eye of Newt, whatever I need to do to make sure that Taron Armstead is on that field week 1 against the Chargers. I mean, you got Joey Bosa on that defense. You got Khalil Mack on that defense, 2 ferocious pass rushers for the Chargers there. You want Taron Armstead on the field week 1. We'll see if it happens, but Armstead not practicing today as the Dolphins kick off their week of preparation for the Chargers this Sunday.
Well, again, this is the thing with Taron Armstead. You said it. He doesn't practice very often. And quite frankly, he doesn't need it. Like, the way that things have been just illustrated for us in the past is that Taron Armstead is basically a coach on the football field. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know if I've always been quoting this wrong, but I believe that he actually has his own personal, off-season program that he helps other offensive linemen to train. So this guy, he knows what he's doing front and back. So I'm not even a little bit concerned if he doesn't end up practicing. If anything, I'm just going to look at this as extra reps for Kendall Lamb, like you said, because there is probably a distinct chance that Kendall Lamb is going to have to play some left tackle this season. But kudos to him. I was concerned that I don't necessarily look at Kendall Lamb as somebody that I want playing multiple games, because he's been a backup. He's been a journeyman. He's been a free agent for extended periods of time for a reason. It's not like teams have been knocking down his door trying to get him on their team. But I don't know what it is about him. I don't know if maybe George Godsey told some lies about him in the past, and that's why other teams weren't looking at him, because I still remember that one quote that Kendall Lamb gave where he basically said that George Godsey told him he didn't believe in him. So that's obviously major paraphrasing, but basically George Godsey was not a fan of Kendall Lamb. And so now here he is in Miami, and I have not seen anything except encouraging signs regarding Kendall Lamb and the fact that he's going to be able to play left tackle. And I don't know if he can play right tackle. We haven't seen a lot of him at right tackle. I don't even know if we've seen any of him at right tackle at this point, because if something happens to Austin Jackson or nothing happens to Austin Jackson and he just sucks, which I'm holding my breath, that is not going to be the case, because Austin Jackson had some good snaps. He also had a couple snaps that kind of made you raise an eyebrow and think, should I be worried about this? But in the case of Taron Armstead, he said that he was going to be ready for week 1. I don't know if the Dolphins feel that way, but if all else fails, I feel fairly confident that Kendall Lamb can at least get the job done. If anything I'm worried about, it's Austin Jackson, which they're going to be going up against Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa. Those guys are dangerous, to say the least.
Yeah, that's a formidable defense there in Los Angeles with the Chargers. And they gave this Dolphins offense, which is relatively unchanged outside of a couple players. They gave this Dolphins offense a lot of trouble last year when they played them. I believe it was on Sunday Night Football. Back-to-back games on the West Coast for the Dolphins. They had played the 49ers the week prior. That was a physical game. They were a little banged up. It's traveling from Miami to California. That's a long road trip. That can't be discounted, what that does to a human being's body. You got jet lag, you got all that stuff. And they just came out flat last year in California against the 49ers and the Chargers. So, you hope you got a long off season, fresh legs for everybody. Everybody's going in here, rested and ready to rock and roll. And another thing about, that could bode well for this Dolphins offense is the fact that Vic Fangio runs a very similar defense to the defense that Brandon Staley was employing against this Dolphins offense last season. And Tua and the rest of the offense has had an entire offseason to practice against this style of defense and to figure out where they went wrong and to try and right those wrongs and correct those mistakes and be able to perform better. And you've seen it with reports this offseason during training camp that this offense is improved against this style of defense, and that, the offense won their fair share of days. So it'll be interesting to see what happens when they go against Brandon Staley's defense. But Mike McDaniel, he had some interesting comments about the Chargers defense and the fact that Ronaldo Hill, who was an assistant for the Chargers last season, is now an assistant with the Miami Dolphins this season. I think Mike McDaniel thinks that he's got a little ace up his sleeve with Ronaldo Hill. I think Mike McDaniel thinks that maybe it was Ronaldo Hill that was helping that defense against this Dolphins offense last year, and not so much Brandon Staley, the head coach. So you could see him kind of smirking and smiling and even laughing at times during today's press availability when he was asked about the Brandon Staley defense. And he even said, was it I'm paraphrasing now, but was it the Brandon Staley defense or was it the Ronaldo Hill defense? Something to that effect. So I think McDaniel kind of heard all offseason that he was outcoached by Brandon Staley last year. And I think he took that to heart, and I don't think he likes hearing that. And I think he's going to have something prepared for Brandon Staley and the rest of that Chargers defense once Sunday's game kicks off.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that, the smirking, the smiling, the laughter. Look, Ronaldo Hill wasn't just any old assistant coach. He was literally their defensive coordinator. So if anybody was in on the actual plan for what the Chargers did to the Dolphins last season, it was Ronaldo Hill. And I'm sure that Ronaldo Hill is going to look and say, yeah, all the bad ideas were my ideas, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay. So Mike McDaniel's going to sit Ronaldo Hill down and say, hey, so what was that defensive game plan again? So how do we beat that? Just where are your little weak spots and everything? It's not hard to imagine. That's the same thing that we hear about whenever Bill Belichick does his annual poaching of a Miami Dolphins player, which he didn't do this year. I should note. I don't think that there was any poaching unless you count Mike Gesicki being a poach per se. So, but aside from that, I feel like the Dolphins are in a really good spot right now against these Chargers. They already know what the game plan is probably going to be, just because if nothing, even if Ronaldo Hill did not come up with the game plan, he at the very least was in on it because he was the defensive coordinator and it's his job to execute it. So he was in on the plan. He knows what the plan is. And I sincerely doubt that Brandon Staley is going to suddenly decide to come up with a brand new defensive scheme to stop the exact same offense that he was able to stop last season. That would be like the equivalent of, if it ain't broke, well, we're going to try to fix it anyway. That's the exact opposite of what most coaches do. So I'm very interested to see how this is all going to go down. We'll wrap this up in just a few minutes, but I wanted to go ahead and briefly touch on the Dolphins choosing their team captains. You had the list real quick. Can you just read that off for us?
I'm looking for the list right now. I closed it out. I apologize for that. I don't know if you have the list in front of you, if you can pull it up a little bit quicker than I did. I know you got Tua, you got Tyreek, you got Holland, you got Armstead, you got Ingold, and I feel like Christian Wilkins,
Javon Holland, and Xavier Howard. Yeah.
There it is. That rounds it out there. That's pretty chalk to me. I didn't see any surprises there. Was there anyone on that list that you thought, was a little interesting to you?
I mean, the fact I know that we talked about Duke and I and Chris Early talked about this yesterday on the show. Alec Ingold had gotten his extension, but I did not picture Alec Ingold as the team captain type. If they're going to pick a running back or at least somebody in that room, I figured it would have been someone like a Raheem Mostert, since he's considered a veteran leader in that room. But they went with Alec Ingold. I'm not objecting. I'm not saying that Alec Ingold doesn't deserve it. Obviously, he's a very talented player at what he does for what his position is, a fullback. It's a almost extinct position at this point. But obviously, when he is on the field, he does his job very well. So I'm not against it. I'm just very curious as to why Ingold, of all players.
I think Ingold, he's just a natural motivator. He wrote an inspirational book this offseason and was kind of touring around to promote it. So I haven't had the chance to read it. I've spoken with people who have. They say it is very just, it makes you want to run through a brick wall. So I could see if he's that type of personality, I could see why he would be chosen to be a leader on this squad and be a guy that, just keeps everyone in check and gets everyone motivated for the big games. And, if somebody has an issue and they don't feel comfortable going directly to the coaching staff, they can go to somebody like Ingold and he can help them work through those things. So I think Ingold's a good dude. He got that big extension. He's going to be in Miami for quite a while now. So I'm not entirely surprised by the Ingold selection as a team captain.
And just on a final passing note, because I told people I'm going to keep harping on this, I will not let this go. The Dolphins made Christian Wilkins a team captain, and they're not going to pay him his guaranteed money. I'm very upset. I'm very upset about that. It's like you acknowledge that he is a crucial part of this defense. You acknowledge that without him, the defense is not the same. You acknowledge that he's a leader both on and off the field, but you won't give him his money because he didn't get as many sacks as his constituents in 2022. Because I'm going to keep saying this. You look at the numbers for all the guys who have gotten paid, their sack numbers are very similar to Christian Wilkins. They were hovering around 4, 5, 5.5 sacks. Maybe some of them got 6 if they were lucky in certain years. But it wasn't until 2022, almost simultaneously, all of these dudes who got paid this offseason suddenly exploded in sack numbers. I don't know how that happened, but I would like to I'm just going to go ahead and say this. I'm going to keep harping on this because I feel like that we're just dismissing it because he's not tackling the quarterback specifically. Christian Wilkins has more tackles, at least 30 more tackles, than any other defensive lineman, not just defensive tackles, defensive lineman, period, in the entire NFL. For 2 seasons straight, he has at least 30 more tackles than all those guys. But because he didn't tackle the quarterback, it doesn't count. It's not important. Who cares? Just pay the man his money and let's get this over with. I'm over it, man. I'm over it.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you there. And, I think maybe the Dolphins are using this as a motivational tactic. Maybe they're saying, hey,
so they're making him more expensive. Sacks. They're making him more expensive.
It certainly could backfire on them here. But I think if this pisses Wilkins off and he goes out there and he gets 10, 12 sacks, somewhere in that range, obviously he'll be more expensive. They'll have to pay him, but that will benefit the Dolphins in 2023 at the very least. So maybe it is a motivational tactic. I'm not quite sure exactly what's going on there, but I think we're all in agreement that we want Christian Wilkins to be a big part of this Miami Dolphins defense for many, many years to come.
All right. That's going to be it for this show. I'm going to go ahead and call it here. Mr. Marek, thank you for joining me. It's been a pleasure to have you, and we'll try to have you on for more stuff. Obviously, you will get more opportunities to be on. There was going to be pregame. There's going to be postgame. There's going to be all sorts of opportunities to have you on as a contributor for the network. So we really appreciate you having you on.
Thank you very much, Lewis. I was happy to be here, and I had a blast.
All right, awesome. And for all of those who are listening, if you haven't already done so, make sure you head to You Break Wheel Fix if you need to get your wheels fixed up, or if you just need to give your ride the ultimate Dolphins makeover. 305-748-0112 is the number to call, or you can go to online at youbreakwheelfix.com, and of course, go to prizepicks.com. Use that promo code 5. Today is Taco Tuesday, so there are plenty of discounted props that are going to appear on the board, so keep an eye out for those. Use the promo code 5 and deposit your $100. Prize Picks will give you $100 of their dollars for you to play with, and you can get started winning today. All right, that's it. We will see you all tomorrow for another episode of Fins Nation.